She was just a waitress serving champagne when she noticed the contract was fake. 3 words in perfect Italian saved a mafia boss from losing $1 billion. Now the men he trusted want her dead, and he's the only one who can keep her alive. Anna's hands trembled as she balanced the tray of champagne flutes. Not from nerves, she'd been waiting tables for 2 years now, but from exhaustion. Her shift at Ristorante Maria had started at noon, and now, past 9 in the evening, her feet screamed for mercy. "Table 7 needs water," Marco hissed as he rushed past her, his bow tie crooked. Table 7. The VIP section. The one everyone had been whispering about all night. Anna grabbed a crystal pitcher and approached carefully. The seaside restaurant's terrace overlooked black waters that crashed against ancient rocks below. Soft violin music drifted from the corner where a live musician played, but it couldn't mask the tension radiating from Table 7. 6 men sat around the table. 5 wore expensive suits that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. The 6th man, seated at the head, wore a simple black shirt, but everyone in Sicily knew his face. Lorenzo Vitali. Anna had seen his photo in newspapers, usually attached to words like alleged and investigation, but tonight, he looked different. Tired. Almost. Legitimate. She'd read somewhere that he'd transformed his family's operations into charity foundations and urban development projects. Whether that was true or just good public relations, she couldn't say. She began pouring water, keeping her eyes down, trying to be invisible. "The documentation is flawless, Signor Vitali," one of the foreign men said in broken Italian. His accent was Eastern European, Russian maybe. "This contract dates back to 1891. Your great-great-grandfather's original land claim. With modern development rights, the value is extraordinary." Another man, British by his accent, slid a leather portfolio across the table. €1 billion. Once you sign, we handle everything: development, permits, international partnerships. You simply collect quarterly payments. Anna finished pouring and turned to leave, but something made her pause. Through the violin music and ocean waves, she heard the British man continue. "The contract clearly states, trasferimento perpetuo dei diritti territoriali mediante cession irrevocable." Anna's blood went cold. That wasn't right. She'd spent 4 years studying historical Italian linguistics. Her entire thesis had focused on 19th century Sicilian legal documentation. Those words, they were wrong. Completely, deliberately wrong. Perpetual transfer of territorial rights through irrevocable cession, the translator beside them said in Italian, nodding confidently. Anna's mind raced. Cession irrevocable didn't exist in 1891 legal language. That phrasing only appeared after the 1942 Civil Code reform. And trasferimento perpetuo? That would have been concession hereditaria in authentic documents from that era. This was a forgery. She should walk away. Mind her own business. She was a waitress, not a detective. Lorenzo Vitali's problems weren't her problems. But €1 billion. If he signed that contract. "Signor Vitali," she heard herself say. Her voice cut through the conversation like a knife. Every head turned toward her. Lorenzo's dark eyes locked onto hers. Up close, he was younger than she'd imagined. Maybe 35, with a scar above his left eyebrow and the kind of presence that made you want to either run or stand perfectly still. Yes. His voice was quiet, controlled. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. "Mi scusi, but I couldn't help overhearing." She switched to rapid, flawless Italian. Not the simple Italian tourists used, but the complex, formal dialect of legal proceedings. "That contract. The language they quoted.
Questo è falso."
"This is fake." The violin stopped playing. The British man's face drained of color. The Russian shifted in his seat, his hand moving toward his jacket. Lorenzo raised one hand, a small gesture, but everyone froze. His eyes never left Anna's face. "Explain." "The phrasing," Anna continued, her voice steadier now. 19th century Sicilian legal documents would never use cession irrevocable. That's post 1942 terminology. An authentic 1891 contract would read Concession Hereditaria per Lignaggio Diretto. And the notary's seal. She gestured toward the open portfolio. Those weren't standardized until 1903. If this document is really from 1891, it shouldn't have that seal format. The silence that followed was deafening. One of the suited men laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. A waitress? She's clearly educated, Lorenzo interrupted, still watching Anna. Keep talking. The ink aging is wrong too, Anna said, gaining confidence. I can see from here. The oxidation pattern on the signature doesn't match the date stamp. Someone created this recently and artificially aged it. The Russian stood abruptly. We don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Lorenzo said softly. The Russian didn't sit. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. Someone screamed. The violinist dropped his bow. Anna stumbled backward, knocking into a server behind her. Nobody moves, the Russian shouted in accented Italian. Two of Lorenzo's men, Anna hadn't even noticed them standing by the terrace railing, rushed forward. The British man grabbed the portfolio and ran toward the side exit. Another accomplice fired a shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. More screams erupted from nearby tables. Anna hit the ground, her hands covering her head. Through the chaos of running feet and shouting, she felt strong hands grab her arms and pull her toward the kitchen entrance. Get her outside.
Now,
Lorenzo's voice commanded. She tried to resist, but the hands were insistent. As she was dragged through the kitchen's back door into the night air, she caught one last glimpse of the restaurant. Overturned chairs, shattered glass, and Lorenzo Vitali staring directly at her. His expression wasn't angry. It was calculating. And Anna realized with sinking certainty, her life had just changed forever. The night air hit Anna's face like a slap. Two men in dark suits had her by the arms, pulling her around the side of the building toward the parking lot. Her shoes scraped against the gravel, and her server's apron had torn somewhere in the chaos. Wait, stop. Let me go. She tried to wrench free, but their grips were iron. Behind them, more gunshots cracked through the air. Glass shattered. A woman's scream pierced the night, followed by the wail of approaching sirens. Police are coming, one of the men muttered into a radio. Package secured. I'm not a package, Anna shouted. I need to go back, my purse, my phone. No time, the other man said curtly. They reached a black SUV parked in the shadows. The rear door swung open, and Anna was pushed, not roughly, but firmly, into the back seat. One man climbed in beside her, while the other took the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. This is kidnapping, Anna said, her voice shaking. I'm a witness. The police will need my statement. The police will get you killed, the man beside her said. He was older, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and a calm demeanor that somehow made everything more terrifying. Those men weren't amateurs. The moment they realize you exposed their operation, they'll come looking for you. The SUV peeled out of the parking lot just as 3 police cars screamed past them in the opposite direction, lights blazing. Anna's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. 2 hours ago, her biggest concern was whether she'd earn enough tips to cover rent. Now she was in a speeding vehicle with 2 of Lorenzo Vitali's men, fleeing what might have been an attempted murder scene. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. The man pulled out his phone, pressed a button, and handed it to her. Someone wants to speak with you. Anna stared at the phone like it might explode. Slowly, she raised it to her ear. Hello. Anna Rossi, correct? Lorenzo Vitali's voice was as calm as if he were ordering dinner. Born in Palermo, graduated from University of Bologna with honors in historical linguistics. Your thesis was titled Semantic Evolution in Sicilian Legal Documentation, 1850 to 1950, currently employed at Ristorante Maria despite being overqualified. You live alone in a studio apartment on Via Maqueda. Rent is 3 weeks overdue. Anna's blood ran cold. How do you? I make it my business to know things, Lorenzo continued. And right now, what I know is that you just saved me from signing away everything I've built. 1 billion euros, Anna. My entire legitimate operation, the housing projects, the medical clinics, the youth centers. All of it would have transferred to a shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands. I recognized the language was wrong. You did more than that. You exposed an international fraud operation that's been planning this for months. Maybe years. His voice hardened. And now they know you can identify their forgeries. They know you're the only witness who understands what they attempted. Do you understand what that means? Anna's hand tightened on the phone. Through the window, she watched the city lights of Palermo blur past. They were heading toward the mountains. It means they'll try to silence me, she whispered. Yes. So what do I do? Right now? You trust me. I know that's asking a lot. I know what you've heard about me, about my family. Some of it's even true. But I'm not your enemy, Anna. Those men at the restaurant, they are. The SUV took a sharp turn onto a narrow mountain road. The ocean disappeared behind them, replaced by dark hills dotted with ancient olive groves. My men will take you somewhere secure, Lorenzo continued. I need you to look at the full documentation. Tell me everything that's wrong with it. Help me understand how deep this goes. And then what? I just go back to my life? Pretend this didn't happen? There was a pause. When Lorenzo spoke again, his voice carried something that might have been respect. Anna, your life as a waitress ended the moment you said questo e falso. You can't unring that bell. But I can promise you this. If you help me, I'll make sure you're protected. And compensated. I don't want money. Everyone wants money. But more importantly, you want answers. You want to know why someone created that forgery. Why they chose me. And another pause. Why the calligraphy style in that document matches your father's work. Anna's breath caught. What? We'll talk soon, Anna. My men will keep you safe. I'll be there within the hour. The line went dead. Anna sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Her father's work? That was impossible. Her father had been dead for 3 years. Wasn't he? Rain began to fall as the SUV climbed higher into the mountains. Fat drops splattered against the windshield, and lightning flickered in the distance. Anna watched the storm roll in from the sea, her mind spinning faster than the vehicle's wheels. Her father's work. Lorenzo's words echoed in her head like a taunt. Giuseppe Rossi had been a master calligrapher, one of the best in Sicily. He'd restored ancient manuscripts for museums, created wedding invitations for wealthy families, and taught Anna everything he knew about the subtle art of historical writing. He'd also died 3 years ago.
Heart attack.
She'd been there. She'd held his hand in the hospital. So how could his work be connected to a forgery created recently? We're here, the driver announced. The SUV turned through iron gates that swung open automatically, then closed behind them with an ominous clang. The villa ahead was enormous, 3 stories of stone and terracotta, surrounded by manicured gardens that were barely visible in the rain. Armed guards stood at the entrance, watching their approach with hawk-like attention. This wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Anna's hands were shaking again. I want to call my roommate. She'll be worried. No phones, the gray-haired man said, not unkindly. Not until we secure the situation. If those men have connections, and they do, they can track calls, messages, everything. So, I'm a prisoner. You're a protected witness. There's a difference. Is there? He didn't answer. Inside, the villa was surprisingly warm. Marble floors, expensive art on the walls, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. A woman in her 60s appeared, dressed simply but elegantly, and gestured for Anna to follow her.
Come dir.
You're soaked. Let's get you dry clothes and some food. I'm not hungry. You will be, the woman said with a kind of maternal certainty that didn't allow argument.
I'm Lucia.
I manage the household. Don't worry, you're safe here. 20 minutes later, Anna sat in a guest room wearing borrowed clothes, soft cotton pants, and a sweater that smelled like lavender. Lucia had brought her soup and bread, which Anna picked at without tasting. Through the window, she could see the storm intensifying, sheets of rain washing across the mountainside. She felt trapped.
Scared.
And beneath that, something else she didn't want to acknowledge. Curious. What had Lorenzo meant about her father's work? A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, expecting Lucia. Instead, Lorenzo Vitali stepped into the room. He'd changed from his black shirt into a simple gray sweater, and his dark hair was damp from the rain. Without the restaurant's dramatic lighting and tension, he looked more human. Tired lines creased his eyes, and there was mud on his shoes. "You came through the storm," Anna observed. "I told you I would." He remained by the door, keeping distance between them. "May I sit?" She nodded toward a chair by the window. Lorenzo sat, his movements careful and deliberate. For a moment, he just looked at her, not threatening, but assessing, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're wondering why I mention your father," he said finally. "He's dead." "I know." "I'm sorry." Lorenzo pulled out a tablet from his bag and tapped the screen. "But look at this." He turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a high-resolution photograph of the forged contract signature, the elaborate, flowing script that had supposedly been written in 1891. Anna's breath caught. She'd know that handwriting anywhere. The distinctive loop on the letter, V. The precise angle of the crossbars. The subtle flourish at the end of each line. That was her father's style. His exact technique. "That's impossible," she whispered. "He would never create a forgery. He had integrity." "I believe you," Lorenzo interrupted gently. "Which is why I think someone stole his work, copied his technique. Or," he hesitated, "used something he created innocently for a different purpose." Anna's mind raced back through memories. Her father's studio, filled with half-finished projects. The documents he'd worked on for various clients. He'd been meticulous, keeping samples of everything. "After he died," she said slowly, "his studio was broken into. The police said it was random vandalism. Nothing valuable was taken, just papers scattered everywhere. I thought—" "You thought it was meaningless," Lorenzo finished. "But someone was looking for something. Samples of his work, maybe. Templates they could modify." "Who would do that?" "That's what I need you to help me discover." Lorenzo leaned forward, his expression intense. "Anna, this forgery isn't just about stealing money. It's about destroying everything legitimate I've built. Someone wants to paint me as either stupid or criminal. Signing away my assets proves I'm incompetent, or it makes me look like I'm hiding money offshore. Why tell me all this? Because you're already involved. And because," he paused, something shifting in his expression, "you're the only person who noticed. Everyone else in that room, including my own advisors, was ready to let me sign. But you saw the truth in seconds." Thunder rumbled overhead. The lights flickered. Anna set down her soup bowl, her decision crystallizing. "Show me everything. The full contract, the documentation, all of it. If someone used my father's work to commit fraud, I want to know who. And why." Lorenzo smiled, brief, but genuine. "I was hoping you'd say that." He stood and offered his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Anna took it. Lorenzo led Anna through the villa's corridors, past rooms filled with shadows and the faint smell of old wood. They descended a staircase into what appeared to be a study, walls lined with books, a massive oak desk, and a fireplace crackling with fresh logs. Two men were already there, standing over a table covered in documents. They looked up sharply when Anna entered, hands instinctively moving toward concealed weapons. "She's with me," Lorenzo said simply. The men relaxed but didn't leave. Anna realized they were guards, not guests. This entire meeting was being watched, protected. On the table lay the leather portfolio from the restaurant, now open to reveal thick parchment pages covered in elaborate script. Beside it were photographs, copies, and what looked like authentication reports. "This is everything they brought," Lorenzo explained, gesturing to the spread. "The contract, supporting documentation, notary stamps, even old photographs supposedly showing the original property boundaries." Anna approached slowly, her academic instincts overriding her fear. She pulled on the cotton gloves Lorenzo offered and carefully lifted the first page. The moment she touched it, she knew. "The paper is wrong," she said immediately. "This is modern parchment, made to look old. Real 1891 documents would have a different texture, coarser, with visible chain lines from the manufacturing process. This is too smooth." "What else?" Lorenzo asked, watching her intently. Anna studied the ink, holding the page up to the light. "The oxidation is artificial. See these brown spots? They're too uniform. Natural aging creates random patterns based on environmental factors, humidity, air exposure, handling. This was chemically treated to appear aged." She moved to the signature, her heart clenching as she recognized her father's distinctive style again. "This is definitely based on my father's work," she said quietly. "But it's been modified. Look here." She pointed to a subtle variation in the letter spacing. "My father would never leave this much gap between the surname and the title. He was obsessive about spacing." "So someone copied his technique, but made mistakes," Lorenzo said. "Or they scanned his original work and digitally altered it before printing." Anna flipped through more pages, her analytical mind cataloging every error. "The legal language is completely wrong for the period. They used contemporary Italian mixed with archaic words randomly, like they were just trying to sound old." One of the guards cleared his throat. "How much would this have cost them to produce?" "Tens of thousands at least," Anna replied. "Quality forgery materials, expert printing, artificial aging processes. This wasn't cheap or rushed. They invested serious money into making this convincing." Lorenzo leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "Which means they expected a massive return. 1 billion euros justifies that investment. But why you specifically?" Anna asked, looking up from the documents. "There are wealthier targets in Italy. Because I'm vulnerable in a unique way," Lorenzo said, his voice hardening. 10 years ago, my family was involved in less legitimate enterprises. Everyone knows that. I've spent the last decade transforming everything, buying legitimate businesses, funding social programs, working with government oversight. But one scandal, one piece of evidence suggesting I'm still operating in shadows, and everything collapses." He picked up one of the photographs, a staged image showing what appeared to be an offshore bank statement. "If I'd signed this contract, within weeks these documents would have leaked to authorities. They'd show Lorenzo Vitali secretly transferring billions to Caribbean shell companies. Tax evasion, money laundering, fraud. I'd lose my business licenses, my government contracts, everything. And face prison," Anna added softly. "Yes." She studied him for a moment. Despite everything she'd heard about the Vitali family, despite the armed guards and fortress villa, Lorenzo seemed genuinely invested in his legitimate work. The charity projects weren't just covers, they were his redemption. "Someone wants to destroy you," she said. "Not just rob you. Destroy everything you've built." "Exactly," Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "Which means this is personal. Someone who knows my history, my vulnerabilities, my business structure intimately." "An insider," one of the guards said. "It has to be." Lorenzo began pacing, his mind clearly working through possibilities. "Only a handful of people have complete access to my financial information. My accountant, my lawyer, my—" He stopped abruptly. "What?" Anna asked. "My financial advisor.
Matteo Greco.
He's been with me for 6 years. Handles all international transactions. He was the one who recommended I meet with those investors tonight." The room fell silent except for the crackling fire. "He set you up?" Anna whispered. Before Lorenzo could respond, an explosion shattered the night. The entire villa shook. Windows rattled. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency backup lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. Shouts erupted from outside. Gunfire cracked in rapid succession. Lorenzo grabbed Anna's arm. "Stay close to me."
"Now."
"What's happening?" One of the guards pressed his radio to his ear, his face grim. "Boss, we have a breach. Someone just blew the front gate. Multiple vehicles approaching fast." Lorenzo's expression turned to steel. They found us already. He pulled Anna toward a hidden door behind the bookshelf. Those men from the restaurant. They're not giving up. And Anna? Yes. You're not just a witness anymore. You're their primary target. The only person who can prove what they tried to do. As they rushed through the secret passage, Anna realized the truth with cold certainty. She hadn't saved Lorenzo Vitali. She'd painted a target on both their backs. The passage was narrow, dark, and smelled of damp stone. Anna stumbled after Lorenzo, her hand gripping his jacket, as they descended steep stairs, lit only by his phone's flashlight. Behind them, muffled shouts and gunfire echoed through the villa's walls. Where does this lead? Anna gasped, her voice bouncing off the ancient stones. Old Smuggler's Tunnel. Dates back to the 1800s, Lorenzo moved with practiced ease, clearly familiar with every turn. Comes out near the cliffs, half a mile from the villa. They blew up your gate. They did more than that, Lorenzo's voice was grim. That explosion was precise. Took out the security system's main hub. Someone gave them the exact location. This wasn't a random attack. Anna's mind raced. Matteo, your financial advisor. Maybe. Or someone working with him. Lorenzo stopped at a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. He pressed his radio. Marco. Status report. Static crackled then. For vehicles, maybe 12 hostiles. They're storming the main house now. We're holding them at the east wing, but gunfire erupted through the radio. They've got military-grade weapons, boss. These aren't street thugs. Fall back to position 3. Don't engage unless necessary. I want everyone alive. Lorenzo switched channels. Lucia, are you secure? In the safe room with the staff, the older woman's calm voice responded. We're locked down.
Good.
Stay there until I give the all-clear. He pocketed the radio and turned to Anna. This way. Quickly. They took the left passage, moving deeper into the earth. Anna's borrowed shoes slipped on the damp stones, and twice Lorenzo caught her before she fell. The temperature dropped with each step, and she could hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Why are they doing this? Anna asked, her voice smaller than she intended. If they wanted to silence me, couldn't they just
wait?
Follow me home from work. Because you didn't just ruin their scam, Lorenzo explained, navigating around a collapsed section of wall. You exposed it publicly. In front of witnesses. The restaurant staff, other diners. People saw you confront those men. They saw the panic, the weapons. By now, half of Palermo knows something happened at Ristorante Maria tonight. So, I'm a liability they can't ignore.
Worse.
Your evidence. The only person who can testify about exactly what was wrong with those documents. Without you, the case becomes he said she said. With you? Lorenzo glanced back at her. With you, they go to prison for decades. A distant boom echoed through the tunnel, followed by the sound of crumbling masonry. They're using explosives inside the villa, Lorenzo muttered. Looking for us. Your home is just a building. Buildings can be rebuilt, his jaw tightened. But if something happens to my people because of this. They emerged into a wider chamber with multiple exits. Lorenzo checked his phone, frowning at the lack of signal, then oriented himself by markings on the wall, old smuggler's code that Anna couldn't decipher. How did they find the villas so fast? Anna asked. You said no phones, no tracking. I don't know. Lorenzo's admission carried a weight of frustration. This location is known only to my inner circle. Either someone talked, or he stopped, something clicking in his expression. Or they've been planning this for longer than we thought. Watching me. Mapping my safe houses. This was all coordinated, Anna said, the pieces falling together. The forgery, the restaurant meeting, the attack. They wanted to trap you in one place. And they're willing to kill anyone in their way. Lorenzo pulled out his gun. Anna flinched at the sight of it and checked the chamber. Which means we can't trust anyone except. His radio erupted with panicked voices. Boss, they've breached the safe room corridor. Fall back to. Lucia, get the staff to the. Then, cutting through the chaos, a single gunshot. Silence. Lorenzo's face went white. Lucia?
Marco?
Anyone respond?
Static.
No, no, no. He pressed the radio repeatedly.
Marco? Come in.
Lucia, please respond. Nothing. Anna watched as something shifted in Lorenzo's expression, raw fear transforming into cold fury. He stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats, then moved with sudden purpose. Change of plans, he said, his voice deadly quiet. We're not running anymore.
What?
But you said. I said to keep you safe. But I won't abandon my people to save myself. He turned to her, and Anna saw something dangerous in his eyes. There's a car waiting at the tunnel exit. Keys in the ignition. When we reach it, you drive straight to Palermo. Central Police Station. Ask for Captain DeMarco. He's clean, not on anyone's payroll. Tell him everything. What about you? I'm going back. That's insane. They'll kill you. Lorenzo checked his gun again, his movements mechanical. Maybe. But those people up there, Lucia raised me after my mother died. Marco saved my life in Naples. I don't leave family behind. He started walking back the way they came. Anna stood frozen for a moment, watching him disappear into the darkness. Every logical instinct screamed at her to run, to take the escape route, to survive. Instead, she heard herself call out, "Wait." Lorenzo turned. "You'll need someone who can identify the forgeries," Anna said, her voice steadier than she felt. "If this is about evidence, I'm the evidence. We go back together." Anna. You don't leave family behind, right? She took a shaky breath. Well, they used my father's work for this. That makes it personal for me, too. For the first time since the explosion, Lorenzo smiled, brief and fierce. Stay close, he said. And when I say run, you run. Understood? Anna nodded, not trusting her voice. Together, they turned back toward the sounds of destruction, walking straight into danger instead of away from it. They never made it back to the villa. Halfway through the tunnel, Lorenzo's phone buzzed with a text, no caller ID, just 2 words, "They're alive." Then a photo, Lucia and the staff, bound but unharmed, being loaded into a van. "It's a trap," Anna whispered. Lorenzo stared at the image, his knuckles white around the phone. "They want me to come back. Want me exposed, desperate." Another text arrived. Station. 1 hour. Come alone, or they die. The train station, Lorenzo said, his mind clearly racing. They're taking them to Palermo Central. Public place, lots of exits, easy to disappear. The police won't get there in time. And if they do, these people will kill the hostages the moment they see uniforms. He looked at Anna, conflict written across his face. But they said come alone. You need to take that car, and... They have your family because of me, Anna interrupted. Because I exposed their scam. I'm going with you, Anna. Besides, you think I'll be safer alone? They want me dead too, remember? She straightened her shoulders, forcing confidence she didn't feel. We're wasting time arguing. Lorenzo studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly.
Fine.
But you follow my lead. Exactly. They took the tunnel to its end, emerging in a rocky cove where waves crashed against black stones. A nondescript sedan waited in the shadows, just as Lorenzo had said. Within minutes, they were speeding down the mountain road toward Palermo's lights. The storm had passed, leaving the streets slick and gleaming. Lorenzo drove in tense silence, periodically checking his mirrors. Anna watched the city approach, her stomach knotted with fear. They'll be watching for this car, she said. I know. We'll ditch it before the station. Lorenzo took a sharp turn into a residential neighborhood. There's a parking garage 2 blocks from Central. We'll go the rest of the way on foot, blend with the late-night crowd. And then what? Walk into their trap. Not their trap. Mine. He pulled into the garage, choosing a spot in the darkest corner. I've been operating in Palermo my whole life. I know that station better than anyone. If they think they can control the situation there, they're wrong. They abandoned the car and moved quickly through back streets. Despite the late hour, Palermo was still alive, Cafes closing, couples strolling, music drifting from apartment windows. Anna tried to look casual, just another woman walking with her companion, but her heart hammered with every passing stranger. The station's grand facade appeared ahead, its Art Nouveau architecture illuminated by vintage street lamps. Even near midnight, people flowed in and out, travelers catching late trains, workers heading home, tourists arriving from the mainland. Platform 7, Lorenzo murmured, checking his phone. Another message had arrived with a location. International departures. Rome night train leaves in 40 minutes. They're planning to escape on it, Anna realized. With your people as hostages. Not if we get there first. Lorenzo pulled her into a side entrance, bypassing the main hall. This way. Staff corridors. They navigated through maintenance passages, past bemused janitors and confused railway workers. Lorenzo moved with absolute certainty, his knowledge of the building's layout complete. They emerged on Platform 5, 2 platforms away from their target. There, Anna whispered. Through the crowds on Platform 7, she spotted them, the Russian from the restaurant and 3 other men, surrounding a group of bound people near the Rome train. Lucia's silver hair was visible among them. The hostages' hands were tied, mouths gagged, but they were alive. 6 hostages for guards, Lorenzo counted quietly, plus whoever's on the train. Too many for a direct approach. The British man, Anna said suddenly. From the restaurant. I don't see him. He's probably coordinating from somewhere else. The coward always lets others do the dangerous work. Lorenzo pulled out his phone. I'm calling someone. A friend who owes me. I thought you said no police. Not police. Better, he dialed, spoke rapidly in Sicilian dialect Anna barely followed, then hung up. We have 10 minutes before help arrives. But we need to stall them until then. The departure board flickered. 35 minutes until the Rome train left. How do we stall armed men without getting everyone killed? Anna asked. Lorenzo's expression turned calculating. By giving them what they want. Me. No. Not really. A distraction. He pointed to the far end of the platform where luggage carts were lined up. You're going to create chaos. Knock over those carts, start screaming, anything to draw attention and scatter the crowd. In the confusion, I'll move the hostages. That's insane. They'll shoot. Into a crowd of witnesses? With security cameras everywhere. Lorenzo shook his head. They want to disappear quietly, not create a massacre. Trust me. Anna looked at the carts, then at the armed men, then at Lucia's terrified face. Okay, she breathed. But if this goes wrong... It won't. You don't know that. Lorenzo met her eyes. Anna, I've survived worse odds than this. Just, he hesitated. Be careful. Please. Before she could respond, Anna saw movement on the platform. One of the guards was pointing at them, shouting to the others. They'd been spotted.
Now.
Lorenzo pushed her toward the carts. Go. Anna ran. Behind her, she heard Lorenzo's voice ring out across the platform. Let them go, and you can have me. The Russian turned, smiled coldly, and raised his gun. Then 3 things happened simultaneously. Anna crashed into the luggage carts with all her weight, sending them careening across the platform. The lights flickered and died, plunging the station into darkness. And gunfire erupted from somewhere above them. Chaos exploded across the platform. People screamed and scattered as luggage tumbled everywhere. In the darkness, Anna couldn't see anything except emergency lights flickering on, casting everything in an eerie green glow. She hit the ground hard, her palms scraping against concrete. Stay down. Lorenzo's voice cut through the panic. More gunshots, but these were different, coming from the station's upper walkways. The Russian and his men dove for cover behind pillars. One went down, clutching his shoulder. Anna crawled behind an overturned cart, her breath coming in short gasps. Through the chaos, she saw Lorenzo moving low and fast toward the hostages. He reached Lucia first, cutting her bonds with a pocket knife. Go. Get them to the south exit, he shouted to someone Anna couldn't see. Shadows moved in the darkness. Men in dark clothing who weren't the Russians. Lorenzo's backup had arrived. They moved with military precision, herding the freed hostages toward safety while laying down covering fire. The Russian shouted something in his native language. Two of his men retreated toward the Rome train, which was still boarding despite the chaos. Passengers screamed and pushed, trying to escape the platform. Then Anna saw him. Standing calmly near the train's first-class car, watching the entire scene with cold calculation, was a man in an expensive suit. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, designer glasses. He looked completely out of place amid the violence, like a businessman annoyed by a delayed flight. He pulled out his phone, made a call, then vanished into the train car. "Lorenzo!" Anna shouted. Someone just got on the train. But her warning was drowned out by the train's departure whistle. The doors began closing. Lorenzo saw it too. He sprinted toward the train, but it was already moving, picking up speed as it pulled away from the platform. The Russian and his remaining men had disappeared into the crowd, using the fleeing passengers as cover. Within minutes, it was over. Station security and police flooded the platform. Lorenzo's men melted away into the shadows as quickly as they'd appeared. The hostages were safe, huddled together near the station cafe, where paramedics were checking them over. Lorenzo found Anna behind the luggage cart, helped her up. "You're bleeding." She looked down. Her palms were scraped raw, and her borrowed pants were torn at the knee.
Ai fine.
But that man on the train. I saw him. Lorenzo's jaw was tight. "Did you recognize him?" "No, but he wasn't panicking. Everyone else was running, but he was calm. Like he'd expected this." Lorenzo pulled out his phone, already making calls. "We need to stop that train before it reaches Rome. If he gets away." A weak voice interrupted them. "Lorenzo." They turned. Lucia had broken away from the paramedics and was walking toward them, shaky but determined. Her wrists were bruised from the ropes, and her elegant dress was torn, but her eyes were fierce. "Zia," Lorenzo said softly, using the Italian for aunt. "You should rest."
Ai fine.
"But you need to know something." Lucia glanced at Anna, hesitating. "It's about the forgery. About how they knew." "What do you mean?" Lucia took a shaky breath. "One of the men, while we were tied up, he was on the phone.
Angry.
Saying the plan was falling apart. He mentioned a name. She looked directly at Anna.
Giuseppe Rossi."
Anna's world tilted. "My father." He said something about the daughter doesn't know, and Rossi's old files were perfect, but we should have destroyed the originals. Lucia's voice softened with sympathy. "I'm sorry, child. I don't understand what it means, but I thought you should know." Anna felt like she couldn't breathe. "That's impossible. My father died 3 years ago. He would never." Anna, Lorenzo's hand was on her arm, studying. What if he didn't know? What if someone stole his work, his files, after he died? "The break-in," Anna whispered. "At his studio. They told me nothing was taken, but what if?" She looked up at Lorenzo, pieces clicking together in her mind. What if they didn't steal finished work? What if they took his technique guides, his practice sheets, his templates? They could recreate his style perfectly, Lorenzo finished. Use it to make forgeries that would pass most inspections. But who? Who would even know about my father's work?
"Someone close to him," Lorenzo said.
Someone who knew his value as a calligrapher. Anna's mind raced back through memories. Her father's clients, his colleagues, his friends. The restoration firm he'd worked with occasionally. The museum curators. The wealthy collectors who'd commissioned pieces. Then, like ice water down her spine, she remembered. "There was someone," she said slowly. "A man who came to the funeral. Said he'd worked with my father on document authentication. Offered to buy his remaining supplies, his unfinished work. I said no, I wanted to keep everything."
"He seemed
disappointed." "Do you remember his name?" Anna closed her eyes, searching her memory. The man had given her a card. She'd thrown it away, too grief-stricken to care about business matters. "Greco," she whispered, her eyes snapping open. His name was Matteo Greco. Lorenzo went perfectly still. My financial advisor. The implication hung between them like a blade. He knew my father, Anna said, her voice shaking. He had access to his work. And he's been advising you for 6 years, long enough to plan this entire operation. Long enough to map every detail of my business, Lorenzo added, his voice hard as stone. My properties, my accounts, my security protocols. Everything. Lucia gasped. Lorenzo, if Matteo is behind this, then he's the man on that train, Anna interrupted, getting away while his hired men take the fall. Lorenzo was already moving, phone to his ear. We're not letting him reach Rome. That train makes a stop in Cefalu in 90 minutes. We can get there first if we leave now.
We?
Anna asked. He looked at her, something intense in his expression. He used your father's legacy to commit fraud. He tried to destroy my life's work. And now he thinks he's won. Lorenzo's smile was cold. We're going to prove him very, very wrong. Anna thought of her father, his careful hands, his pride in his craft, his integrity. Someone had twisted his art into a weapon. Let's go, she said. They ran for the exit, leaving the chaos of the station behind. The hunt had just begun. They didn't go to Cefalu. In the car racing along the coastal highway, Lorenzo received a call that changed everything. He listened in silence, his expression darkening, then ended the call with a sharp curse. What? Anna asked from the passenger seat. Matteo got off the train early. Too many Emeries, not Cefalu. He had a helicopter waiting. Lorenzo's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He's already in Rome. How do you know? Because he just transferred 15 million euros from one of my accounts to a bank in Luxembourg. Lorenzo's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded explosions. He's liquidating everything he can access before anyone freezes the accounts. Can't you stop him? I already called my bank. They're locking down all accounts pending fraud investigation. But Matteo had authorization codes, backup access. He could have siphoned millions before we catch up. Lorenzo accelerated, the car hugging the curves of the mountain road. We need proof. Hard evidence that links him directly to the forgery. The contract itself won't be enough. A good lawyer will argue he was fooled too, that he recommended the deal in good faith. We need to prove he orchestrated it, that he knew about your father's work, that he planned this for years. Anna stared out at the dark Mediterranean waters below. Where would that proof be?
Rome.
The original document that was stolen, the real land rights contract your forgery was based on, was taken from the Ministry of Cultural Heritage Archives. If we can prove Matteo accessed those archives, if we can find evidence he commissioned the theft, that's conspiracy, fraud, and theft of national heritage, Anna finished.
Exactly.
Crimes that carry serious prison time, even for wealthy men with expensive lawyers. The drive to Rome took 4 hours. They stopped once for gas and terrible coffee, neither speaking much, both lost in thought. Dawn was breaking over the city when they finally arrived, painting the ancient buildings in shades of gold and rose. Lorenzo navigated through early morning traffic to a nondescript government building in the Euro district. The ministry keeps backups of their security systems here. A friend owes me a favor. Inside, they were met by a tired-looking woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain. Lorenzo, I heard about last night. Are you all right?
Fine, Gabriella.
Thank you for seeing us so early. Gabriella glanced at Anna with open curiosity, but didn't ask questions.
Come?
The records room is this way. They descended into a basement archive that smelled of paper and dust. Rows of filing cabinets stretched into shadows, and a wall of old monitors displayed grainy security footage from various heritage sites. The land contract was stolen 4 months ago, Gabriella explained, pulling up records on a computer. From our Palermo facility. The theft wasn't discovered for 2 weeks. Someone had replaced the original with an excellent copy. Do you have security footage from that period? Anna asked. We do, but it's extensive. Weeks of recordings, hundreds of visitors. I need footage from the authentication department, Lorenzo interrupted. Specifically, anyone who accessed 19th century Sicilian legal documents. Gabriella typed rapidly. That narrows it considerably. Let me see. She pulled up a database, filtering by date and department.
Here.
17 visitors to that section over the relevant 3-month period. She brought up the footage on a larger monitor. Together, they watched accelerated recordings of researchers, students, and officials examining documents in the climate-controlled room. There, Anna said suddenly. Stop. Gabriella froze the image. On screen, a man in a business suit was photographing documents with a small camera, not the standard issue provided by the ministry, but his own device. Anna's breath caught. That's him. The man from the train station. Lorenzo leaned closer. And that's Matteo Greco, my financial advisor. Are you certain? Gabriella asked. Completely. Lorenzo's voice was ice. Date stamp? March 15th. 4.5 months ago. 2 weeks before the document was reported stolen, Anna noted. He was documenting the original so they could create a perfect copy. Gabriella scrolled through more footage. He returned 3 more times over the next month. Always alone, always photographing. Then, on April 3rd, she pulled up a new clip. Look at this. The footage showed Matteo leaving the building late at night, carrying a thin document case. He looked directly at the camera for a brief moment and smiled. He knew he was being recorded, Anna whispered. He just didn't care. Probably thought no one would check the footage. Arrogant, Lorenzo muttered. That's good. Arrogant people make mistakes. Gabriella burned the footage to a secure drive and handed it to Lorenzo. This is enough for an investigation. I can have warrants issued by this afternoon. No, Lorenzo said quickly.
Not yet.
If warrants go out, Matteo will disappear. He has resources, connections. We need to catch him before he knows we have this evidence. What are you planning? Lorenzo checked his phone, scrolling through messages. Matteo is still in Rome. My people tracked his phone signal to the Opera House district. There's a charity gala tonight at Teatro dell'Opera. International investors, politicians, old money. Exactly the kind of event where he'd network and establish alibis. He'd go to a public event while people are hunting him? Anna asked. He thinks he's won, Lorenzo replied. The forgery failed, but he's stolen millions. As far as he knows, we can't prove his involvement. He's probably planning to disappear after tonight. New identity, new country. So, we expose him there, Anna said, understanding dawning. Publicly. In front of hundreds of witnesses. Exactly. Gabriella looked between them. That's dangerous. If he realizes you're coming.
He won't, Lorenzo said.
Because I have tickets to that gala. I was invited months ago. Matteo knows I'm supposed to be there. It'll look normal. Nothing about this is normal, Anna pointed out. Lorenzo smiled grimly. Then we'll make it unforgettable. He turned to Anna. How do you feel about opera? I've never been. Perfect. Tonight, you're about to attend your first. And we're going to make sure Matteo Greco's performance ends with a standing ovation from the police. The Teatro dell'Opera di Roma blazed with light as evening fell. Women in elegant gowns and men in tuxedos flowed up the red-carpeted steps like a glittering river. Paparazzi cameras flashed, capturing Rome's elite arriving for the season's most anticipated charity gala. Anna barely recognized herself in the mirror of the hotel suite Lorenzo had secured. The floor-length emerald dress hugged her figure, and her hair had been professionally styled into an elegant updo. A makeup artist had transformed her scraped face into something that belonged on a magazine cover. You look nervous, Lorenzo said, adjusting his bow tie. In his tailor tuxedo, he looked every inch the legitimate businessman. No trace of the dangerous man who'd exchanged gunfire at a train station just hours ago. Because I am nervous, Anna admitted. What if he recognizes me from the restaurant? He won't. You were in a server's uniform with your hair pulled back. Now you look like you belong in his world. Lorenzo handed her a small earpiece. My men will be positioned throughout the opera house. If anything goes wrong, say the word intermission and they'll extract us immediately. Anna fitted the earpiece, her hand trembling slightly. And the police. Captain DeMarco has plainclothes officers at every exit. Once we have Matteo's confession, or provoke him into revealing himself, they'll move in. Lorenzo's expression hardened. But we need to be careful. Matteo isn't working alone. Those armed men at the station, the helicopter, the offshore accounts, he has serious backing. Who would fund something like this? That's what we're going to find out. The opera house interior was breathtaking, gilded boxes, crystal chandeliers, and frescoed ceilings that seemed to touch heaven. Anna felt like she'd stepped into another century. The crowd mingled in the grand foyer, sipping champagne and discussing art, politics, and scandal in hushed, elegant tones. "There," Lorenzo murmured, his hand on Anna's lower back as they moved through the crowd. Near the staircase, Matteo Greco stood in a circle of well-dressed investors, laughing at something one of them said. He looked completely at ease, charming, sophisticated, untouchable. No sign of the man who'd orchestrated attempted murder just hours ago. "He really thinks he's gotten away with it," Anna whispered. "Let's change that." Lorenzo guided her toward Matteo's group. "Follow my lead." They approached casually, Lorenzo greeting acquaintances along the way. When they reached Matteo's circle, Lorenzo smiled warmly. "Matteo, I wasn't sure you'd make it tonight." Matteo's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: shock, fear, then forced calm. "Lorenzo, I heard about the incident at your villa. Thank God you're safe." "Safe and well. Thanks to some quick thinking." Lorenzo's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Strange night, really. Armed men, explosions, kidnapping. Any idea who would want to attack me so viciously?" "Terrible business." Matteo's eyes darted to Anna, trying to place her. "The authorities are investigating, yes. Though I have my own theories." Lorenzo accepted 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter, handed one to Anna. "May I introduce Signorina Anna Rossi? She's a linguistics expert. Fascinating knowledge of historical documents." Anna watched the color drain from Matteo's face. Recognition flickered, not from the restaurant, but from the name. "Rossi," Matteo repeated carefully. "That's an interesting coincidence, isn't it?" Anna said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "My late father was Giuseppe Rossi. Perhaps you remember him? Master calligrapher. I believe you attended his funeral." The other investors were watching now, sensing tension, but not understanding it. Matteo recovered quickly. "I met many artisans in my work. I don't recall." "Really?" "Because the Ministry of Cultural Heritage has security footage of you photographing documents in their archives." Repeatedly, Lorenzo's voice remained pleasant, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. The same documents that were later stolen and used to create an elaborate forgery. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Matteo set down his champagne, preparing to leave. "If you'll excuse me." "Tell me, Matteo," Anna interrupted loudly enough that nearby conversations paused. "When you stole my father's calligraphy samples, did you feel any guilt? Or was 15 million euros enough to silence your conscience?" The foyer was quieting now, people turning to watch. Matteo's pleasant mask cracked. "You have no proof. No evidence. Just wild accusations from a desperate man who nearly bankrupted himself with bad investments." "Actually," Lorenzo pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. "We have 4 months of security footage showing you stealing heritage documents. We have evidence of you commissioning forgeries. And," his smile turned predatory, "we have recordings of your phone calls coordinating the attack on my villa." It was a bluff. They had no phone recordings. But Matteo didn't know that. Those calls were encrypted. Matteo snapped, then froze, realizing what he'd just admitted. The silence that followed was deafening. "Were they?" Lorenzo asked softly. "Thank you for confirming they exist." Matteo's eyes widened with panic. He looked around, at the watching crowd, at Lorenzo's cold smile, at Anna's unflinching gaze. Then he did something Anna didn't expect. He ran. Not toward the exits, but deeper into the opera house, pushing through the crowd toward the main theater. Shouts erupted. Security guards moved to intercept, but Matteo was fast, desperate. "He's heading for the roof access," Lorenzo said into his earpiece. "Already running. All units converge." Anna kicked off her heels and followed, her dress hiked up, running through Rome's most elegant opera house like she was fleeing a burning building. The hunt had moved to its final stage, and there was nowhere left for Matteo to hide. Anna had never run so fast in an evening gown. She burst through a service door behind Lorenzo, emerging onto a narrow maintenance corridor. The sounds of the panicked opera house faded behind them, replaced by the echo of footsteps on metal stairs above. "He's going up," Lorenzo said, already climbing. "The roof access. There's a helipad for VIP arrivals." "Another helicopter?" Anna gasped, following him up the steep spiral staircase. "He's done this before. Always has an escape route." Lorenzo's voice was tight with exertion. "But not tonight." They emerged onto the opera house's upper level, a maze of catwalks, lighting rigs, and rigging systems that controlled the stage curtains far below. Through the metal grating beneath their feet, Anna could see the theater's ornate ceiling. The height made her dizzy. Matteo was already crossing a catwalk toward a rooftop exit, moving with the jerky desperation of a cornered animal. He kicked open the door and cold night air rushed in. "Matteo, stop!" Lorenzo shouted. "There's nowhere to go. The police have the building surrounded." Matteo spun around, and Anna saw something glint in his hand. A knife. "Stay back," Matteo warned, backing toward the open door. "I'm leaving. You can't stop me." "You really think a helicopter will save you?" Lorenzo moved slowly along the catwalk, hands visible. "Every airport in Italy will be watching for you. Every border." "I have resources you can't imagine." Matteo's voice cracked with panic and defiance. "Offshore accounts, new identities, people who owe me favors. I'll disappear, and you'll spend years trying to untangle what I've done to your finances." Anna edged along the opposite catwalk, trying to circle behind him. Her bare feet were silent on the metal grating. "Why?" she called out, drawing his attention. "Why did you do this to Lorenzo?" "To my father's legacy." Matteo laughed, a bitter, harsh sound. "Your father?" Giuseppe was a useful tool, nothing more. His work was perfect for creating historical forgeries. I cultivated that relationship for years, waiting for the right opportunity. "He trusted you," Anna said, anger replacing her fear. "He called you a friend. Friendship is a luxury for people who can afford it. I needed capital to build something bigger than Lorenzo's petty empire." Matteo's eyes were wild now, the mask of sophistication completely gone. "This was supposed to be simple. The forgery transfers his assets, I liquidate everything, and Lorenzo gets blamed for attempting to hide money offshore. The perfect crime." "Except you underestimated a waitress," Lorenzo said. "One mistake in 4 years of planning." Matteo's hand tightened on the knife. If this bitch had just kept her mouth shut. He lunged toward Anna. She barely dodged, stumbling backward against the railing. The knife whistled past her shoulder, so close she felt the air move. Matteo grabbed her arm, yanking her toward him, the blade now pressed against her throat. "Nobody moves," Matteo gasped, using Anna as a shield. "I'm walking out of here, and she's coming with me. Any attempt to stop me and I'll—" Anna drove her elbow back into his stomach with all her strength. Matteo grunted, his grip loosening for just a second, but a second was enough. Anna twisted free, dropping low as Lorenzo rushed forward. The two men collided in a tangle of limbs and fury. The knife skittered across the catwalk. Anna scrambled for it, her hands closing around the handle just as Matteo kicked Lorenzo in the chest, sending him crashing against a lighting rig. Sparks flew. The rig groaned, tilting dangerously. Matteo turned toward Anna, breathing hard. "Give me the knife." "No," Anna held it steady, pointing it at him despite her shaking hands. "You don't have the nerve to use it. You're an academic, not a killer." Matteo took a step closer. "Hand it over, and maybe I'll let you live." "I don't need to kill you," Anna said. "I just need to keep you here until—" The rooftop door burst open. Plainclothes police officers flooded through, weapons drawn. "Freeze. Hands where we can see them." Matteo's face went through a final transformation, from threatening to desperate to defeated. He looked at Anna, at the knife in her hands, at the police surrounding him. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You think I'm alone? The people I work for will be next," Lorenzo interrupted, getting to his feet. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, but his voice was steady. "Every transaction, every contact, every offshore account. We'll find them all. You really don't know who you're dealing with." "Captain DeMarco," Lorenzo called to one of the officers. "He's all yours." Two officers moved forward, handcuffing Matteo with practiced efficiency. As they read him his rights, Matteo looked directly at Anna one last time. "Your father," he said, venom in his voice. "Did you know he was sick? That he knew he was dying months before the heart attack? He begged me to take care of you after he was gone, to make sure you'd be financially secure." Anna's breath caught. "I promised him I would." Matteo smiled cruelly as the officers started to lead him away. "Guess I'm a liar in more ways than one." "Wait," Anna said, her voice breaking. "What do you mean he knew he was dying?" But Matteo was already being dragged through the door, his laughter echoing in the darkness. Lorenzo appeared at Anna's side, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "Don't listen to him. He's trying to hurt you." "But what if?" "We'll find the truth," Lorenzo promised. "All of it. But right now, you need to breathe. It's over." Anna looked at the knife still in her hand, then at the Rome skyline visible beyond the rooftop. Somewhere in the opera house below, an audience waited for a performance that would never continue. She dropped the knife. "Is it really over?" she whispered. Lorenzo's expression was grim. "The arrest is over." But Matteo was right about one thing. He wasn't working alone. And whoever's behind him is still out there. Anna closed her eyes, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. The performance had ended. But the real investigation was just beginning. The courtroom was packed. 2 weeks had passed since the Opera House confrontation, and in that time, Anna's life had transformed completely. Her face had been on every news channel. Linguistics graduate exposes billion-dollar fraud, and her phone hadn't stopped ringing with interview requests, job offers, and messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. But today was about justice. Anna sat in the witness box, her hands folded in her lap, facing a courtroom full of judges, lawyers, journalists, and curious onlookers. Matteo sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suit and charming smile long gone. He looked smaller now, defeated. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Giuliana Rossi, no relation, approached Anna with a document in hand. "Signorina Rossi, can you explain to the court how you identified this contract as fraudulent?" Anna took a steadying breath. She'd rehearsed this testimony dozens of times, but her heart still raced. "The language was wrong for the period," she began, her voice clear and professional. "The contract was supposedly from 1891, but it used legal terminology that didn't exist until the 1942 Civil Code reform. Phrases like cession irrevocable and trasferimento perpetuo are modern constructions. And you noticed this immediately? Within seconds. I specialized in 19th century Sicilian legal documentation for my thesis. To me, it was like hearing someone speak Shakespearean English, but using words invented in the 1990s. It doesn't fit." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor held up the forged document, now sealed in evidence plastic. "Can you also explain the significance of the calligraphy?" Anna's throat tightened. This was the hard part. "The handwriting style matches my late father's technique. Giuseppe Rossi was a master calligrapher. After his death, someone broke into his studio. We now know it was associates of the defendant and stole his practice sheets, his technique guides, and samples of his work. And these were used to create the forgery?"
"Yes."
"They scanned and modified his writing to create signatures and notations that appeared authentic. But they made mistakes, spacing errors, inconsistent pressure points. My father would never have made those errors." The prosecutor turned to face Matteo. "So the defendant deliberately exploited your father's legacy, using stolen materials to commit fraud?" "Yes. And your father had no knowledge of this criminal enterprise?" "None. My father died 3 years before this forgery was created, Anna's voice strengthened with conviction. He was an artist who valued integrity above everything. He would have been horrified to know his work was used this way. Matteo's lawyer, an expensive-looking man from Milan, stood for cross-examination. Signorina Rossi, isn't it true that you have a personal relationship with the alleged victim, Signor Vitali? That you've been staying at his properties, accepting his financial support? Objection. Juliana called. Relevance. I'm establishing potential bias, Your Honor. The judge nodded. I'll allow it. Please answer, Signorina Rossi. Anna met the lawyer's eyes calmly. I met Lorenzo Vitali the night I exposed the fraud. Before that, I'd never spoken to him. He provided protection because the defendant's associates tried to kill me. As for financial support, I've been paid as a consultant, standard rates for expert testimony. Everything is documented and legal. But you can't deny you have a vested interest in seeing my client convicted. I have a vested interest in the truth, Anna interrupted, her voice sharp. Your client used my father's art to commit fraud. He orchestrated attacks that put innocent people in danger. He stole millions and would have destroyed legitimate charitable organizations. Those are facts, not bias. The lawyer tried several more angles, but Anna held firm. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing with Juliana, anticipating every trick, every attempt to discredit her testimony. When she finally stepped down from the witness box, she felt lighter somehow.
Cleansed.
Lorenzo testified next, presenting financial records, security footage, and evidence of Matteo's systematic betrayal. Captain DeMarco presented findings from the police investigation. An expert from the Ministry of Cultural Heritage confirmed the theft of the original documents. The evidence was overwhelming. When the trial recessed for deliberation, Anna found herself on the courthouse steps, breathing fresh Roman air. Lorenzo joined her, loosening his tie. You did well in there, he said. I just told the truth. That's harder than you think. With lawyers trying to twist your words, Lorenzo gazed out at the city. The judge will rule tomorrow, but Juliana thinks it's solid. Matteo's going to prison for a long time. What about the people backing him? He said he wasn't alone. We found some connections, offshore accounts linked to a Russian syndicate, some corrupt government officials. Most of them scattered when Matteo was arrested. Lorenzo's expression darkened. But you're right. The bigger network is still out there. Anna felt a chill despite the warm afternoon. Will they come after us? Not if they're smart. This case has too much publicity now. Going after us would only draw more attention, he paused. But I'm keeping security around you anyway. Just in case. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the Roman traffic flow past. What will you do now? Lorenzo asked. You've had 50 job offers. Anna smiled slightly. 53, actually. Universities, museums, private firms, she looked at him. But there was one offer that interested me most. Oh, something about international humanitarian projects needing a chief translator? Lorenzo's expression softened. That position is still open. If you're interested. I am, Anna turned to face him fully. But I have conditions. I want to help investigate the rest of Matteo's network. Use my skills to identify other forgeries, track down stolen heritage documents, expose the people who profit from destroying history. That could be dangerous. I stopped $1 billion fraud by accident. Imagine what I could do on purpose, Anna's smile widened. Besides, I'm done hiding. Done being just a waitress when I could be something more. Lorenzo extended his hand. Partners? Anna shook it firmly. Partners. The courthouse doors opened behind them. Juliana emerged, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression triumphant. The deliberation's over, she called out. They have a verdict already. Judge wants everyone back in 20 minutes. Anna and Lorenzo exchanged glances, then headed back inside. Whatever the verdict, Anna knew one thing with certainty. Her life had changed forever that night at Ristorante Maria. She'd spoken 3 words, questo e falso, and everything had transformed. She'd found her voice. And she was never going to be silent again. Guilty on all counts. The verdict had come swiftly. Matteo Greco was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, theft of cultural heritage, attempted murder, and money laundering. His assets were frozen, his accounts seized, and his reputation destroyed. Anna had watched him being led away in handcuffs, his face blank with shock. She'd expected to feel triumph, vindication. Instead, she felt only a quiet sense of closure. Now, 5 days later, she stood on the Palermo seaside promenade at sunset, the same coastline visible from the restaurant where everything had begun. The Mediterranean stretched endlessly before her, painted in shades of amber and rose by the dying light. "You're thinking too much," Lorenzo said, appearing beside her with 2 gelato cones. He handed her the pistachio. Somehow he'd remembered it was her favorite. Just processing everything, Anna accepted the gelato, letting the sweet coldness ground her. 3 weeks ago, I was worried about making rent. Now I'm being called a hero. I have job offers from around the world, and I'm standing here with— She paused, unsure how to finish. "With a reformed Mafia boss?" Lorenzo supplied with a slight smile. "I was going to say, with someone who changed my life, but that works too." They walked slowly along the promenade, joining the evening crowd of families, couples, and tourists. Street musicians played somewhere nearby, and the smell of grilled seafood drifted from restaurant patios. "I have something for you," Lorenzo said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Anna opened it carefully. Inside was a certificate of authentication and a photograph of a leather-bound journal. Her breath caught. "That's my father's journal. The one from his studio. I thought it was lost in the break-in." "Matteo had it," Lorenzo explained gently. "The police recovered it from a safety deposit box. Along with this." He handed her a second document, a letter, written in her father's distinctive hand. "My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to tell you while I was still here. The doctors found the heart condition 6 months ago. They gave me a year, maybe less. I know Matteo Greco. I know what kind of man he is beneath the expensive suits and charming smile. I made the mistake of trusting him once, letting him photograph my work for what he claimed was a documentary. I realized too late what he truly wanted. I've hidden my most important techniques, the ones that could be misused. This journal contains notes on how to identify forgeries created from my style. Inconsistencies only you would understand. Keep it safe. If anyone ever tries to use my work for fraud, you'll be able to prove it. You have a gift, Anna. Not just for languages, but for seeing truth where others see only words. Don't waste it waiting tables because you're afraid to stand out. The world needs people who speak up, who refuse to stay silent when they see something wrong. Be brave, my brilliant girl. And know that everything I did hoping you'd have a better life than I gave you. All my love, Papa." Anna's vision blurred with tears. She pressed the letter against her chest, feeling like her father was there with her one last time. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew Matteo was dangerous. He tried to protect me even after he was gone." Lorenzo's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "He raised an extraordinary daughter. One who saved more than just my business." "What do you mean?" "The charity projects, the housing developments, the medical clinics, the youth centers. They serve thousands of families across Sicily. If Matteo had succeeded, all of that would have collapsed. People would have lost homes, medical care, hope." Lorenzo turned to face her, his expression serious. "You didn't just save money, Anna. You saved lives." Anna looked out at the darkening sea, her father's letter still clutched in her hand. She thought about the past 3 weeks, the terror, the violence, the impossible choices. But also the discovery of her own strength, her voice, her purpose. "So," Lorenzo said, breaking the comfortable silence, "my offer still stands. Chief translator and cultural consultant for Vitali International Humanitarian Foundation. You'd work with heritage sites across the Mediterranean, authenticate documents, help recover stolen artifacts, and prevent fraud like Matteo's from ever happening again." "That's a generous title." "You've earned it," he smiled. "Plus, the job comes with a corner office in Palermo, a research budget that would make universities jealous, and a team of investigators at your disposal. When would I start? Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, next month, next year. No pressure. Anna took a final bite of her gelato, savoring the sweetness, then looked at Lorenzo with new determination. Tomorrow, she said firmly. I start tomorrow. You're sure? I've spent too many years hiding, playing it safe, being invisible. My father's letter was right. I have a gift. And gifts aren't meant to be buried. She straightened her shoulders. There are more forgeries out there, more Mateos trying to exploit history for profit. Someone needs to stop them. And that someone is you? That someone is us, Anna corrected. Partners, remember? Lorenzo's smile widened, genuine and warm, so different from the cold intensity she'd first seen at the restaurant. Partners. They continued walking along the promenade as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deepening shades of purple and indigo. Around them, the city came alive with evening lights, laughter, and music. Anna thought about everything that had changed since she'd uttered those 3 words, questo e falso. She'd lost her quiet, invisible life. She'd gained purpose, partnership, and a future that terrified and excited her in equal measure. 3 weeks ago, she'd been afraid to be seen. Now, she was ready to be extraordinary. Thank you, Anna said softly. For what? For listening. That night at the restaurant, you could have dismissed me as just a waitress. But you listened. Lorenzo stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Anna, you saved my life. Not just that night, but everything I've built. Everything I'm trying to become. His voice carried a weight of sincerity. I should be thanking you. Then we're even.
Deal.
They shook hands formally, then both laughed at the absurdity of it after everything they'd been through. As they turned to head back toward the city, Anna cast one final glance at the dark waters where her journey had begun. She'd arrived at that restaurant as one person and left as someone entirely different. The girl who'd been afraid to speak had found her voice. And she was just getting started.